In the 1970s, European cinema was dominated by two great stars. The first was French, Catherine Deneuve, an ice-cool blonde of classic beauty. The second was Marcello Mastroianni, the most celebrated leading man in Italian cinema, and one charmingly bemused by his legion of female admirers. Millions of women saw the appealingly forlorn Marcello as a suitable case for their care. But in the early 1970s, the caring was provided by Catherine Deneuve, on screen and off. These two icons of European cinema became lovers, but theirs was to be one of the most secretive of romances, one which they were later reluctant to discuss. Mastroianni's childhood and youth recall the narrative of a movie, but one with a happy ending. Born in 1924, the child of a poor family, Marcello went into hiding in an attic in Venice during World War II, after escaping from a German labor camp. Fortunately for Marcello, and for his later admirers, this enabled him to survive the turbulence that swept through his native country. Later, at university, he drifted into acting and began to attract attention as a member of director Luchino Visconti's repertory company. Visconti provided the young actor with a launching pad for a distinguished stage career. With his dark matinee idol looks, softened by a hint of self-doubt, Marcello gravitated towards the Italian movie industry, which was enjoying a revival. In the war, Italian cinema had been dominated by bombastic propaganda films. But in 1943, Visconti's Obsession, based on James M. Cain's The Postman Always Rings Twice, signaled a move towards more raw, realistic material. Obsession heralded a stream of so-called neo-realist films, launched in 1945 by Roberto Rossellini's Rome Open City, a semi-documentary shot under extremely difficult conditions, while fighting to liberate Italy's capital was still going on. Its purpose was to capture the experience of ordinary Italians caught up in great events. The intensity and immediacy of such movies, the result of necessity and primitive conditions, had a worldwide influence and elevated directors like Rossellini to international status. Even the major Hollywood studios were influenced. David O. Selznick agreed to finance a later neo-realist classic, Bicycle Thieves, but only if Cary Grant played the lead. Post-war Europe, awash with refugees trudging through ruined towns, was the forcing bed for a wave of neo-realist films of the 1940s and early 50s. Movies like Rossellini's Paisa turned a weary eye on the world emerging from the wreckage. Among the last movies in the cycle was Vittorio De Sica's 1952 Umberto Dei. Marcello Mastroianni served a long apprenticeship during this period, and by the late 1950s had established himself in films like The Bigamist with a raffish Vittorio De Sica, White Nights, Visconti's superb adaptation of Dostoevsky, and a riotous farce, Big Deal on Madonna Street. Marcello was now a star. Italian filmmaking was established at Rome's Cinecittà, a far cry from the bullet-raked streets of Rome Open City. Marcello was a new kind of star for a newly affluent Italian public. The film which established his international reputation was Federico Fellini's La Dolce Vita, made in 1959. Fellini cast Marcello as the idly tolerant central figure adrift on a sea of permissive wickedness. He seems unsatisfied, and fails in turn to satisfy a statuesque Anita Ekberg. Like Marcello's fans, Ekberg's Goddess of the Fountain was trying to find a way to break through his world-weary facade. In fact, Marcello's famous passivity could not disguise his real talent in films like Antonioni's La Notte or La Vie Privée with Brigitte Bardot. In 8½, Fellini cast Marcello as a bemused movie director, a handsome alter ego perhaps, in a triumph not so much of neo-realism as neo-surrealism. Fellini likened cinema to the circus, and in the cinematic circus which is 8½, Marcello was the elegant ringmaster, not always in control of events, or indeed completely aware of what is going on. By now, Marcello was a very Italian version of Cary Grant. Hollywood beckoned, but he was reluctant to go.
Mr. Carlo Ponti, the Sofia Loren's husband. I made many films for him with Sofia. And he said to me, you must learn English, you must, you have a possibility to go to work in America. I said, no. I prefer to stay here. I was in love, I had a beautiful girl at this time, for many years, to go in America. I stay well here, I'm well here. I have my friends, it's very important. I was part of a country where cinema was, for me, the most interesting and beautiful in the world.
Born in Paris in 1943, the daughter of a veteran stage and screen actor, Catherine Deneuve came from a different generation to Mastroianni. When Marcello was emerging from hiding and the Allies were liberating Paris, Catherine was still a baby. She made her screen debut as a child in a comedy, Les Collégiennes. But while Deneuve was growing up, it seemed that her older and equally beautiful sister, actress Françoise Dauliac, was going to be the family film star. Tragically, Dauliac's life was cut short in a motor accident in 1967.
Even though I started to do films quite young, I was 16, there was really nothing, because I was brought up with my sisters, you know, and quite normally. My father was much more of a stage actor, and the life we had was quite normal and like all children. And it's really my sister who had the great desire to be a stage actress, which she was. I suppose if my sister hadn't been an actress, I would have never been an actress.
The young Deneuve soon found a Svengali, the director Roger Vadim, a former journalist whose ticket to the big time had been Brigitte Bardot. Vadim had married Bardot and created Europe's first sex kitten. Deneuve had a child by Vadim, but unlike Bardot, she did not marry him and had the steely good sense to appear in only one of his movies, a grotesque adaptation of the Marquis de Sade's Vice and Virtue, filmed in 1962. Deneuve's big breakthrough came 2 years later, when she starred in Jacques Demy's hugely popular musical, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, in which all the dialogue was sung. It was a turning point in her career.
Well, until I met Jacques Demy and I did that film, you know, was so important for me, Umbrellas of Cherbourg, I was never really... I was pushed, yes, in a way. And it didn't mean that much to me until I really met Jacques Demy, because, I mean, it was almost too easy. I mean, I had been chosen, you know, for physical appearance, you know, more than anything, and it didn't mean, I didn't realize, I was young, I didn't realize so much what it was, you know. I was hiding behind my sister very much. And I don't think I would have gone on doing film. It gave me confidence in myself, which I didn't have. And he taught me, I mean, he's a very hard man. He demands a lot. You would think that all directors demand a lot, but not all of them. He's a very good, I mean, he's a very good director for actors, and because he gets something out of you, but he gives you something back.
On the strength of her performance in The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, director Roman Polanski cast Deneuve in Repulsion as a young girl who goes mad in a London apartment. Polanski described Deneuve as looking like a professional virgin, but sexy. She gave a chilling performance.
I want to be with you all the time. Just a little. Kiss between friends, huh?
I think sometimes the most striking parts like that are not the easiest, but not as difficult as you think. I mean, the effect of it, you know, when you see the film is so strong. I mean, you think it really takes so much out of you, but it's easier in a way to go that far. It's much more difficult to stay in between, you know, and not being monotonous or anything like that when you have just to play an ordinary woman. But when you have to play the extreme, you know, either in comedies or dramatics, you always find something on where you have to reach, you know. You can have, you know, where you can put your hands, you know. There is something, you have some material, you know. In Repulsion, for example, I kill, you know, and that very sort of physical, like comedies, I mean, it's very physical. When you have a physical thing to do, it's a great help.
Deneuve's best subsequent work was accomplished with directors who explored her ability to submit gracefully to refined cruelty. Her cool porcelain features would have made Deneuve the perfect Hitchcock leading lady. Sadly, the elegant Deneuve and the portly British maestro never made a film together. After Repulsion, Deneuve's fame made her an adornment of a 60s London which was beginning to swing. One icon of the swinging 60s had to marry another, and Deneuve did. In 1965, she tied the knot with photographer David Bailey. Mick Jagger was Bailey's best man. Bailey found the strong-willed Deneuve difficult to handle. He once described her as temperamental as hell. She's like a Ferrari sports car. Their marriage ended in divorce, although Deneuve and Bailey remained good friends. In 1967, Deneuve was cast by director Louis Buñuel as the erotic, enigmatic central figure in Belle de Jour, a wealthy but bored housewife who takes an afternoon job in a brothel. Deneuve was the beautiful blank canvas on which Buñuel painted bizarre dreams. He exploited the fact that she is, perhaps, the greatest of all cinema's cool blondes. Of Buñuel, she later remarked, "It was his aura of greatness which inspired me. I didn't want to let him down." And with Buñuel, she entered a hidden world.
Well, to me, it makes no difference. Embrassez-moi.
That'll be enough. Now you may have her.
Pierre!
Go ahead.
I love you, Pierre!
Filming Belle de Jour on location, Deneuve described Buñuel's methods.
The way he works, and it's very difficult to talk to him or to try to understand him. He makes a film on his own.
In one famous fantasy sequence in Belle de Jour, filmed in the Camargue, Deneuve is tethered to a post and then splattered with mud. First, the stand-in tries the setup for size while Deneuve waits apprehensively. Then it is the turn of the star. At the best of times, filmmaking is an arduous business, but Deneuve bore this with her customary professionalism. At the end of Deneuve's ordeal, director and star exchanged jokes. If acting and film release fantasies, then Deneuve is one of the greatest fantastic actresses. Photographer Bailey married Deneuve, but it is Buñuel who revealed her. And she later remarked of Belle de Jour, "The film was complex, so we didn't need a lot of discussion." Buñuel took his work seriously, but he never took himself seriously. 3 years later, Buñuel and Deneuve enjoyed another fruitful collaboration. In Tristana, the director devised another method of ruffling that icy poise. He gave his beautiful star a wooden leg. There have been few film props which have been so powerful. The mutilation apparently fascinated Hitchcock. By the early 1970s, Deneuve occupied much the same position in French cinema as Marcello Mastroianni did at Cinecittà. She was the epitome of Gallic elegance and style. Marcello had resisted the lure of Hollywood and stayed in Italy. He was content to remain married to his wife, Flora Caraballa, but this was not allowed to stand in the way of love affairs with his many co-stars. Among them was Sophia Loren, with whom Marcello starred in over a dozen movies. Anita Ekberg, whom Marcello thought too like a Martian for comfort. And Monica Vitti, his co-star in La Notte. Marcello also had a passionate affair with Faye Dunaway, his leading lady in A Place for Lovers in 1968. Marcello once said that he got love and understanding from his wife and love and sensuality from his mistresses. In interviews, he was charmingly frank about his love life.
I don't promise nothing, so they can't judge me. No, they judge me in a way terrible. So I don't make promises. I make fantasies so they can sleep, quiet, women. Yes. I don't disturb. I don't disturb, right? But men, always they promises things. If they don't promise incredible things, they can't make love. That's the truth.
A key to Marcello's character was provided by his performance in director John Boorman's movie Leo the Last. Marcello played a benign but ineffectual millionaire adrift in a seedy part of London. Boorman recalled that his star was that rare creature, an actor without vanity, self-deprecating, yet completely at ease with himself. This was the fountain of his effortless charm. A charm which included and beguiled all who came into his presence. Women were alarmed at Marcello's seeming helplessness and wanted to protect him. He was at home not so much in the bosom of his family, but in his extended family of female admirers. And between 1971 and 1974, the chief member of that extended family was Catherine Deneuve. She and Marcello made several movies together, but chose to live an intensely private life in Paris. She bore him a daughter, Chiara. At first, Marcello tried to conceal the affair from Flora Caraballa, an unusual step for him. Eventually, however, Flora got to know and like Catherine Deneuve, with whom she remains on good terms to this day. Flora once remarked, "The Latin male needs to wander, to feel potent and free. So you let him go, and sooner or later he'll come back home." The romance between the highly intelligent, extremely hard-working Deneuve and the deceptively indolent Mastroianni lasted until 1974. Flora Caraballa lent a hand with Chiara and, as always, forgave Marcello. It had been a grand passion, but could not last forever. Deneuve was too driven, too hard-working, and Marcello, well, Marcello was just Marcello. In the mid-70s, Deneuve went to Hollywood and, in Hustle, found herself once again cast as a call girl, this time romanced by tough cop Burt Reynolds. But Hustle lacked the subtlety and sophistication of Belle de Jour. Nevertheless, Deneuve effortlessly held her own with Reynolds, then at the height of his career.
Your plumbing's stuck.
Where were you going to take me today?
In a far from unpleasant sparring contest, the honors were just about divided evenly.
Have you wear those tight white pants and that sexy blouse? Watch all those guys looking at you. Say to myself, she's for sale.
But French stars have never found Hollywood easygoing, and Deneuve was no exception. In America, she remained famous not so much for her movies, but as the public face of Chanel perfumes. She renewed her career in the early 80s with The Last Metro, directed by Francois Truffaut, with whom Deneuve had worked several years earlier on the quirky Mississippi Mermaid. Later, she described Truffaut's working methods.
Everything goes through words. Actually, when you work with him, he likes to read the script, you know, with actors, not together, one by one. And when he does a film, he knows who is going to play, you know, before he writes the dialogue, you know exactly which actor is going to play.
In The Last Metro, set in occupied France during World War II, Deneuve played a stage actress. Ironically, it's an aspect of her profession she has always avoided.
It's something you cannot really explain, you know. I don't think I could. I mean, actually, I won't even go as far to be really considering to go, which I've been asked, you know, but I cannot really consider that. I don't think I'll be able to control myself for a certain period of time.
In 1985, Deneuve's name and beautiful face was so familiar in her native country that she was chosen as the model for Marianne, since the days of the French Revolution, the national symbol of France. As Marianne, Deneuve succeeded another national legend, Brigitte Bardot. Deneuve, the quintessential French beauty, cool, sophisticated, had become the spirit of France herself. Mastroianni too had been busy in the 1980s, the decade in which his best movie was Fred and Ginger, another collaboration with Federico Fellini. Marcello co-starred with Fellini's wife, Giulietta Massina, as one half of a long-forgotten vaudeville act, impersonators of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, reunited in old age on a television show. Marcello disappeared under aging makeup for the role, and flanked by a quizzical Fellini, talked to newsmen about his love of acting.
It's a pleasurable experience to be actor, you mean? Yes, it's a fantastic experience, a fantastic moment when you act. I don't understand why somebody say that to act is a sufferance. No, I think it's like to make love, to act. It's a sensual pleasure, intellectual pleasure.
As cinema moved into the 90s, Deneuve was still giving enormous pleasure to her public in movies like Indochine, in which she appeared with her daughter Chiara, now a young woman. Deneuve seemed ageless. But Mastroianni's lack of vanity ensured that his movie roles kept pace with the march of time. Shortly before he died, Marcello had dinner with John Borman in Paris. A girl of 12 came over for his autograph. Gracefully, Marcello said, "When I started out, the young girls would come and say, 'It's for my sister.' Then I got older, and they would say, 'It's for my mother.' Now, I suppose, it's for their grandmothers." Marcello Mastroianni died in 1996 at the age of 72. Catherine Deneuve and Chiara were at his side. His funeral service was attended by Marcello's huge extended family, friends, fans in their thousands, his wife and his mistresses. Ciao, Marcello. Deneuve remains with us, still astonishingly beautiful, as hard-working as ever, an icon of French and world cinema. The ultimate ice-cool blonde who in the early 70s found happiness with that most reluctant of sex symbols and yet most sympathetic of men, Marcello Mastroianni. Marcello's diffidence was both a protective device and an essential part of his discreet Italian charm. Together, these two great stars represent two enduring aspects of European life, culture, and love.